this evening. As it happens, I think I mentioned to you that Patty Boyd, who was with George when this place was purchased, she was clearing out her attic recently to sell the stuff on auction, and there was an exhibition in London, and I went along to the exhibition and I took some photographs of stuff there, so I'll send you that along with the photographs of Friar Park. So if we look at Friar Park, this place was built about 140 years ago by Sir Frank Crisp, which again is referred to on the All Things Must Pass album, yeah? And so hugely expensive building work, and the estate itself is the equivalent of 30 hectares, which is about 30 football pitches. So it's a massive, massive place, and we'll talk about the security a little later. So this guy, Frankie Crisp, he created this place 140 years ago, and then he lived in it for about 20 years. It was bought by another sort of aristocrat. He divorced from his wife, and weirdly this place became a convent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah? And the nuns who lived here ran a school in Henley, and clearly there wasn't a huge amount of money for the upkeep, and so that's why this place came up on the market in 1972. Okay, so what we are looking at, yeah, let me just I can't read what I had before. I'm sorry about this. So George and Patty were looking for a country estate. Brian Epstein and the Apple organisation were encouraging the Beatles to move out of central London because of security concerns. The first country estate that George and Patty looked at was, weirdly enough, the owner refused to sell it to George because he was a rock star. And weirdly still, the estate was later bought by Peter Grant, the Led Zeppelin manager. So I don't know how he classified rock and roll. But the bottom line is that George and Patty, they actually saw this place advertised in a Sunday newspaper, the Sunday Times, and I think it was advertised for £120,000. A lot of money back then, yeah. George and Patty arranged to see it the next day, or within a couple of days. They came out here, they loved it, and they offered to pay the full £120,000. Weirdly enough, they ended up paying £140,000. So I don't know how they screwed another £20,000 out of George. Wow. But that's how it sort of set up, yeah. And the bottom line is that it became a kind of rock and roll centre. And Patty, who was sort of interested in photography, took a lot of photographs of the folk who visited them. And yeah, so for example, lots of photographs of Ronnie Wood and Joe Wood, very, very friendly, Stevie Winwood. All these folk were just hanging around looking like rock stars, and Patty would take these photographs. But the important thing that you probably want to know about is the fact that George set up a recording studio here, okay? It was known as FP Shot, Friars Park Studios, Henley on Thames. And when he set this place up, it was a 16-track studio. Remember, Abbey Road was 4-track and Trident was 8-track. So this studio was far superior in many ways than Abbey Road. And George spent a huge amount of money on that. So this is where George Harrison's Dark Horse Productions operated from. And if you think about the albums that have been recorded here, I know a lot of you are interested in the albums. So Living in the Material World, Dark Horse, 33 1/3, Cloud 9, Brainwashed. He also added stuff to 2 of the Travelling Wilburys albums, and he also worked on the soundtrack and the documentary of the Beatles anthology from about 1995. Also recorded interviews for documentaries like Concert for George and the Concert for Bangladesh. And if you remember Martin Scorsese's Living in the Material World, that was all the interviews were recorded here as well. And again, I'll throw this one in. You heard of a band called Shakespeare's Sister? No? Okay, well, they were a girl band, and one of the girls was married to Dave Stewart, the Eurythmics guy. Yeah, so that's probably the link. So they, so that was recorded here. Now, what you've got to remember then is if we had this cutting-edge recording studio, you had all these cutting-edge musicians visiting and recording, and some of the people who used to almost live here: Nicky Hopkins, Gary Wright, Klaus Voormann, Ringo Starr, but I'm not sure if Ringo lived here, Jim Keltner, Jim Horn, all the folk that were associated with the Travelling Wilburys as well would have recorded here, so you can imagine it was a lot of people coming and going. What else can I say? The issues about security. They moved here because they thought it was safe. But after John Lennon was murdered in sort of December 1980, that really put